Welcome to Buckets, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer of the Action Network. I'm joined by NBA futures analyst for the Action Network, Brandon Anderson. Follow him on Twitter at Wheaton Brando. This is your second round NBA semifinals series preview and game one best bets for Knicks versus Heat and Nuggets versus Suns. We are a couple hours removed from the Boston Celtics securing their second round appearance versus the Philadelphia 76ers. And we would love to get you more details on that. But as this is just a couple hours after that, we honestly don't have enough on it yet. We're still evaluating the lines and all that. You can find all where we're going to be on this series, though, in the award-winning Action Network app. Best way for you to track your picks, up the second information where the bets and money are coming in on. Spoiler alert, Brandon's going to be on the Sixers. No, just kidding. He's gonna be on the Celtics. He's hated the Sixers all year. Not hated, just he's been ready to bet against them all year.
That's fair. I'll take the hated.
Hated. And so he's gonna go ahead and be on that side. I have to take the Sixers on a win spread. So just as a heads up, like that's where I'll be on the series because the lines are preposterous. At one book, the Celtics own it's minus 330, which is a 77% chance to win. Now, I will say, like we were talking about in the group chat, probably the best angle is wait until the Celtics win game one without Embiid, most likely. And then if you want to get Sixers, that's probably the time. But I'll be on it beforehand and I'll find I don't know how I'm going to write it in the app, but we're going to figure out a way.
Wait. The series doesn't start till Tuesday. We still have time to actually talk about this, probably, right?
Hopefully. We'll see if we have an opportunity. Yeah. I forget it started on Tuesday. Because the NBA, I'm used to, I don't know, maybe the NBA, maybe the NFL on Tuesday was hosting like a press conference or like, the NFL was just going to run a promo video some stuff. And the NBA be like, oh, God, clear the schedule. You can't go up against the NFL because they're a bunch of cowards. So anyway, we are going to talk about those today. Two great series. Heat Knicks, complete shocker as a 5 seed and the 8 seed advanced to meet in the second round of the Eastern Conference semifinals. And the West, it's a matchup of what honestly is probably the two best teams in the Western Conference as the Nuggets and the Suns face off in what is going to be absolutely an incredible series. Knock on wood, if everyone's healthy for the first time in a long time with the Phoenix Suns series. We'll see how it goes. We are going to give you best bets up front. We always do that at the show. So I want to go ahead and we're going to give our picks up front. And then we'll do the cap after the way that we always do. So you hear them first, and then we'll go. Brandon, I'll start with you. Give me Nuggets, Suns, series bet. Go.
Give me the Nuggets. Plus 120. I will take Denver, and I'm going to take an escalator. Give me Nuggets minus 1.5 on the series spread at plus 260 as part of my bet as well.
Okay, well, the Nuggets are screwed because I'm also on Denver minus 1.5 plus 245. That's my best bet. What's your game one best bet for Nuggets Suns?
Just taking the Nuggets minus 2.5. Just take the team at home, the team you like in the series to win and cover.
Yeah, me too. That line is absolutely just preposterous. That's a ridiculous line on the Denver Nuggets. Like, I don't mind them being dogs, so I get that that's going to have correlation here, but it's pretty ridiculous. Knicks Heat series bet. Give it to me.
Light on this one, but I'm going to take Heat in a 6 or 7. So you got to play that as 2 parts. And the odds on that, it's Heat in 6 or 7 gives me a plus 208. And I'll explain that when we get there.
By the way, I'm also taking the over 225 in Nuggets Suns. It's my best bet. Okay, series bet for Knicks Heat. I am taking the New York Knicks minus 158 to win the series outright. So we're on opposite sides. For the content, we'll get into why it's for the content when we get there. Game one,
I'm gonna talk you into Heat by the end of the podcast.
Probably, so it's not hard. It's not.
Let the people know that your best bet will be Heat by the end of when we're done with this.
Knicks Heat, game one, best bet.
Yeah, just give me the under. Knicks under is 5-0, under 206.5. I was really hoping to get like a 218 or something to start out the series, but nah, take the under anyway.
I'm taking Heat plus 4. Even though I'm taking the Knicks to win the series, and I will be with you on the under 206.5 because of a trend that you have me look up that we'll get to when we get there. Let's start with the not more interesting. I think Knicks Heat is fascinating, but it's fascinating in like a wow, what a weird thing that we found in the second round. Because honestly, these two teams should not be here. I'm just gonna be real with you. They should not be here, but they are, and they've earned it. So we're gonna talk about it. But let's start with the Western Conference battle. This series is absolutely fascinating. 2 years ago, the Phoenix Suns sweep the Denver Nuggets 4-0. Jamal Murray did not play. He had suffered his ACL injury in the previous March. The Nuggets were starting Facu Campazzo in that series alongside Austin Rivers. and Jeff Green at various points. Michael Porter Jr. tweaked his back in that series. The Nuggets bench was terrible. It was a very different Nuggets team, and that's at least what they're hoping for. It's also a very different Phoenix Suns team, because I don't know if you know this, but they had a guy named Kevin Durant. So my big picture thought on this, the most important thing, so to speak, Brandon, this is an offensive series. I don't have confidence in the Nuggets to be able to slow down pick and roll action from the Suns consistently. This is the best mid-range team maybe in the history of basketball. I don't know if there's been a better mid-range team. Durant literally is over 50% on mid-range jumpers. It's ridiculous. Booker is at the absolute peak of his powers. The Nuggets will do a number of things to try and switch up coverages, but they're still going to get to a steady diet of pull up mid-range jumpers, and they're going to make a ton. On the other end of the floor, I do not have any faith in the Phoenix Suns to slow down Denver's attack. Denver, to me, has more weapons. Chris Paul can be a weapon, but he's 38. DeAndre Ayton can be a weapon, but you'll live with it. Torrey Craig shot the absolute lights out in the first round versus the Los Angeles Clippers. That's hard to sustain for a role player. Every role player has like one series, and then it's different the next time out. The Nuggets, meanwhile, have Jokic, Murray, MPJ, Aaron Gordon, which this matchup is way better for him than the double big he had to go, like the bruise fest he had to go through in the first round, facing guys that are way bigger than him. Kentavious Caldwell Pope is a knockdown shooter. Bruce Brown has been playing lights out. Christian Brown has brought a lot off the bench. They have a lot of weapons, and they know Jokic enables them to use all of them. This is a lot about the individual greatness of the Phoenix Suns versus the collective greatness of the Denver Nuggets. So for me, I'm going to be on overs a lot in this series. I'm going to be playing a lot of over props in this series. It should be a fascinating one, but for me, the most important question is, which offense do you believe more in?
Yeah, I think you're right. We have to talk about the offense here. I think for me, the most important thing is very similar, but I'm going to frame it a little differently. Since the moment that Kevin Durant came to Phoenix, all the question have been, how do you defend this team? How do you stop Durant and Booker and CP? It's a good question. It's a very good question. I think it's the wrong question. I think that you don't beat Phoenix with your defense. I think you beat Phoenix with better offense. And that's why I like Denver, because I think Denver will beat Phoenix with better offense. I actually wonder, in a weird way, like Denver's defense is not great. We know this. We know it's not going to be great. We know that Jokic, they're going to shoot over him. He can't cover all the ground. I do like some of the individual matchups. Aaron Gordon on KD, I think, is a nice matchup. KCP for Booker, I think, is a nice matchup. I mean, they're going to get their buckets. They're going to get their looks. So it's not like I'm saying they're going to shut them down. But I almost feel like I don't mind that the Nuggets are actually not going to go crazy hard on defense. I think that I am fine with letting Phoenix take their mid-range shots. The last series that we just finished, the Suns took 40% of their shots at the rim or on the threes combined. 40% is an insanely low number that they took. That, like, compare that to like the Daryl Morey, James Harden Rockets. I don't know what that percentage is, but I'm going to guess it's like 1,000% of their shots at the rim and three. Like, that's the whole thing that we've been doing. And I just don't know that the Suns can out efficient you when they're not taking efficient shots. The Nuggets are going to score. The Suns defense, I think, is the weak link in the teams on the court here. The Suns defense fouls a ton. That was the profile in the 8 regular season games, and it carried over into the Clippers series. They don't rebound well. They give up easy profile shots. Just the Clippers were missing all their dudes, so they missed a lot of them, but still hung around anyway. So I just see Denver scoring very easily, very efficiently this series. And I think Phoenix will score, but Phoenix is going to score 2 and 2 and 2, and they're going to miss half of the mid-range shots as good as they are, because that's how it works. So that, to me, above everything else, is the most important thing.
I don't want to go full on math nerd here, because I'm actually not that great at math. Brandon's my math guy whenever I have a question, but I will point this out. So I looked at mid-range shots for KD and Book in the first round, right? Let's single it out the playoffs versus a pretty good Clipper defense in terms of the matchup. they combined shot 55% from mid-range, which, by the way, 45%. And I'm like, wow, you did great. 48%. Yeah. I'm like, wow, you shot like DeMar DeRozan. Like, that's really impressive. 55% is hotter than the sun. No pun intended. Like, that's absurd. That's crazy. Those are literally the shots that every single team. I tried to ask this of the Nuggets today, and they basically walled me out on the question. I'm trying to ask them, like, what do you do when the shot that you want to give up is what they hit? Like, contested mid-range shots is what you want to deny. And their answer was like, all you can do is contest them. That's all you can do. Okay, cool, because they're hitting them anyway. But to Brandon's point, here's a good example of this. If you hit 55% of your mid-range shots out of every 10 shots, that's a 110 offensive rating. It's not good enough. Like, a 110 offensive rating, it doesn't get you home in the NBA, and especially not versus this Nuggets team. Now, I will say this, the Nuggets, there's a couple of things the Nuggets said today at practice that I think are really interesting. One, there is kind of an acknowledgement that they're going to need to get up of a high volume of threes. Like, they know the game plan here. There's not, which is good. You don't want a team being like, we're not going to do anything different. We're just going to be who we are. Like, you don't want that. You won't want them to go the other way and be like, we have to change everything. What are we going to do with this team? You don't want them like, I don't know, changing your starting lineup before game one of a series versus the New York Knicks where you bench your best wing defender. You don't want to do that. But the other thing that was really talked about was easy buckets. And what I mean by that is the Nuggets understand that this is going to be a series with a lot of tough shot making between Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, Nikola Jokic, and Jamal Murray. And to be really honest with you, MPJ. There's going to be some tough shots in the series. So how do you win it? You win it with the margins by creating easier looks for themselves. And that includes crashing the offensive glass. This is going to be like, I agree with you that margin matters. If the Suns come out and shoot a volume of threes in game one, you and I will be surprised and probably a little shook. Like, it will change the cap for us. I don't know how much we're going to want to react because it goes so far away from who the Suns have been. Like, if you were going to do it versus anybody, why wouldn't you do it versus the Clippers to keep pace? And they still didn't do it, right? This is usually I like to get into like the matchups that are like detailed and like the X factors and like, ooh, you don't think about this guy. Like, I have one of those in the next series where it's like, ooh, you don't think about this guy. You want the most important matchup in this series? It's DeAndre Ayton versus Nikola Jokic. Like, if Jokic, so 2 years ago, Ayton gave him fits, and Jokic credited him constantly. He credited him going into that series and coming out with like, yeah, like he said outright, Ayton defends me about as well as anybody in the league. Like, because Nikola doesn't care about giving other guys credit. A lot of guys are like, doesn't bother me. I don't even feel him. I just miss shots. Nikola's not like that. Nikola's like, yeah, he does a good job versus me because he doesn't understand the dynamics. Doesn't care about him. However, here's the other kind of thing to keep in mind. Having covered the entire span of Nikola Jokic's career, I have come to understand this. Guys will have success against him for a year. And then he plays them again and he figures them out a little bit. And then usually by the next time he's figured him out, it clicks. And that's when he starts to destroy him. This happened to Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert did awesome against him. Rudy can't do anything with him now. That's Rudy Gobert. Can't do anything. The last two seasons when Nikola Jokic has faced DeAndre Ayton in 2021-22, he shot 15 of 21 from the field with 7 assists for 33 points in 18 minutes of matchup time versus DeAndre Ayton. That was last year. In 2023, he matched up with him for just 11 minutes because they didn't play a lot of games this season. They only played one game together when they were actually facing off against each other. 6 of 12 from the field, 10 assists, just 2 turnovers, 15 points in 11 minutes. If Jokic destroys Ayton to the point where the Suns are like, we can't keep doing this, and they either have to start bringing doubles or they have to go small, they're in trouble because they don't have a good small ball option. I've talked about this consistently being an issue. Who are you? What, you going to get Jack Landale? Is that Jock Landale? Not Jack Landale. Jock Landale. Jock Landale. Bismack? No. You going to go to KD at the 5? Because the problem it's not even so much KD defending Jokic. That's not really the problem. The problem is that then Denver's going to put KD in pick and rolls as basically a drop big. And that's hard. So like if Nikola dominates DeAndre in this matchup, it breaks everything down for Phoenix. And again, that tilts more towards the offensive side of the ball. On the other side of this is like the Suns pick and roll action. And I want to get into this with you about how you think about the player props for this series. And you may have a different angle on it. But for me, I am going to be playing. I've been playing Booker overs, and they've gotten wise to it. I just checked this number, and I'm really annoyed with it. They keep putting Booker's assist line has been 5.5, and it started when KD joined the team as a plus number. It was like, oh, 5.5 plus 100 because he's not going to have the ball in his hands as much. And I was like, spam, bet. And I kept doing it, and finally they've gotten wise to it, especially because Booker's playing about 80 minutes a game now. It's 5.5 at FanDuel minus 142.
Yeah.
So like, if you can get to 6.5, because at FanDuel we're jumping all the way up to set to 8 is the next marker on assists. And that's at plus 260. I actually don't mind that. I might play that. I think Booker might have a triple double at some point in the series. That's how much faith I have in Devin Booker to dominate this matchup. He's going to get in battles with Jamal Murray. This is going to be personal for both guys. The Nuggets will try a number of different coverages, but Booker is still going to be able to attack Nikola Jokic at the rim and then drop coverage. Sometimes they won't play drop as much as they did 2 years ago, but they will play it some. And so like, I think this is an over series for Booker points and assists personally, Brandon.
Yeah, Booker assists is probably the top prop that I had on my list. So I agree with you on that one. Just put some numbers to it. We still don't have obviously a lot of games with Durant, but in the 8 regular season games with Durant, Booker played all of them. He was over 5.5 assists in 6 of the 8.
Yep.
And then he's over in 3 of the 5 playoff games, averaging 6.7 assists per game. So you're right. The line should be 6.5, not 5.5. I think it probably will get there pretty quickly in the series if it keeps up. Yeah, you talked about the 55% mid-range shooting and the math for it. Here's a different way of framing it. To hit 55% of your mid-range shots is the exact same as hitting 37% of your threes.
Yeah.
Right? So 37%, like you can't be a bad shooter. Russell Westbrook's not hitting 37% of his threes, but 37% is not a huge number. 37% is just a good above average shooting team. It's not easy, but neither are hitting all those tough, 2-pointers. So I think that helps kind of for me to frame the concern. We talked coming to.
I want to add a context point on that. For context, the Nuggets in a first round series versus the Wolves, that I would actually say that they underperformed in terms of hitting, because like they slogged around in games 4 and 5. Like they knew the series was over and screwed around. They still shot 39.8% versus that 37% mark in the first round versus the Wolves. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too, it's fair that the Nuggets aren't a huge 3-point volume team, so I don't think that the 3 is greater than 2 alone is not enough analysis here. This is not just that, because I think it's entirely possible, especially if you're right that Phoenix ramps up their 3s a little bit. We may not have a huge volume advantage there, so that may not be enough on its own. I do think Denver can dominate a bit on the rebounding, and I think it's important. Denver does not foul a whole lot defensively, and that would be a really key if they can do that. How many times did Kevin Durant shoot a fall away and fall down? And they're like, oh, yeah, and one, go ahead, shoot free throw. So like that, the entire Clippers series was that. And it's Kevin Durant. So it's probably just going to keep happening because superstars get calls. But if Denver can defend without fouling, which again is back to where actually being a slightly worse defense, a slightly less aggressive defense, maybe helps you not foul in a weird way. I think that's an advantage where they can help to nullify that a little bit. A couple other edges that I think go Denver's way. Home court is huge for both of these teams. Home court, Denver in the regular season was 34-7 at home, 19-22 on the road. Phoenix, 28-13 at home, 17-24 on the road. Denver's the home team, and schedule, as you've pointed out, is a bit wonky here. We get game 1, game 2, normal rest, and then there's like a 7-week takeoff in between, like 4 days, 5 days, something. And then after that, we're basically every other day the rest of the way. That's advantage Denver. 2 reasons. Number 1, you're coming to Denver, you're going to play in the elevation, and that always is tougher for the road team. That's part of why Denver and Utah are always so good at home. And number 2, Phoenix's guys are playing 40 minutes every night. Booker and Durant are playing 42, 45 minutes night after night after night. And so add in the shorter rest for most of the games, including game 2 in Denver, and especially what I think will be a hammer spot, game 5 in Denver, coming off 2 normal short rest games back to Denver. I think that's going to be a really key spot for them. And added to that is the fact that Denver, the team that you and all the other Denver, the guys who are at the games and following, railed correctly on Denver's non-Jokic minutes and how bad the bench was all year. I think Phoenix's bench is clearly worse. Mm-hmm. Denver's bench was good in the first round. Denver was winning bench minutes. I don't know if Phoenix is clearly worse. Okay, so you gave me a face on that one, but I do know this.
No, I agree with you.
I don't believe that Phoenix can really hurt the non-Jokic minutes. If they do, and they will a little bit, it's only because Durant and Booker are still playing for those couple extra minutes, and that matters. But if you can't beat Denver handily in the non-Jokic minutes, we got a problem, because Jokic is playing like 39 minutes a game in the games that actually stay close enough. That's up 5 from the regular season. So to me, that's a big problem too. So the home court thing, the non-Jokic minutes, I think also close games late. I know it feels like Booker, Durant, CP, oh, okay, well, they're going to come through. And we saw that happen against the Clippers overall, but actually Phoenix had negative net rating in the fourth quarter, and they had a terrible net rating in the fourth quarter during the season. The Nuggets are always good. Jokic is always very good in the clutch. We know this. So I think that, again, if it's close, the numbers say that Denver probably has an advantage there too. So I just see a lot of the places where there are little edges, little 2% here and there are all adding up to me on the side of the Nuggets.
You know what's funny, as you mentioned that game 5 smash spot. I will. My prediction is Nuggets in 6. I'm betting Nuggets in 6. And I think they lose game 5. I think they go up 3-1 at some point in the series, and they lose game 5 and then close it out on the road. That is the most Denver Nuggets outcome. Like, that's who they are. Talk about the bench, by the way. The bench was awesome for Denver versus the Wolves. Now, Minnesota was without Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid, and it's not that, Jaden was a starter, but like those guys that means that the guys that were on the bench move into the starting role. So the Wolves bench was bad. On top of it, they lost Kyle Anderson for that last game. Easier, and the Wolves just aren't very good. They're a play-in team. What I will say, though, is the Denver bench Malone, it took him a long time to find it. He kept trying to be like, well, we need a ball handler. Like, we got to have somebody on the court that can handle. Let's do Bones Highland. Nope, that was a disaster. Reggie Jackson, we're bringing Reggie Jackson. Nope, those are worse somehow. And then he kind of, like, with the playoffs, he doesn't have to do that anymore because he's just shortened it to an 8-man. And so now it's really just like 2 starters, Bruce Brown, Christian Brown, Jeff Green.
Yep.
Like, that's your bench. And one of the keys here is that they play either Aaron Gordon or Jeff Green at small ball 5, which means that the Suns are running Ayton Paul in the stagger right now. Booker comes in at like the 10-minute mark because, again, as you mentioned, they just play all the time. But in those scant minutes without Nikola, the Nuggets are probably just going to switch. And like, if they give DeAndre Ayton the ball and he dominates versus a smaller opponent, good on him. It would be the first fucking time that the Suns have ever elected to do that.
Yeah.
So like, that's a thing. The chemistry side of this, like, not to go too intangibles, but I am kind of worried about that. Like, if there's a lot of pressure on DeAndre in this matchup, how's that going to go if he screws up? How's that going to, like, what's going to happen with this? And what's Kevin Durant's going to be reaction when he's like looking around and is like, why are you guys all yelling at DeAndre? Why is everyone like, Monty, please stop yelling at DeAndre. It's fine. We need to win the game. Who do you think has the coaching edge in this matchup?
It's a good question. I think it's pretty even. I would slightly, I think I'd pick Malone in part because Malone has had a long time to figure out what this team is and he has a lot more answers that he can go to. Monty has to make guesses at this point. So I think that has to matter. So I don't think it's a big edge though. Do you have an answer that you feel strongly about?
I think Monty's better in game.
I
think that Malone's better over the course of a series.
Interesting.
Malone comes from a coaching tree, and like, this is to kind of explain my thought on this. I'm heavily influenced by, in the mid 2010s, I covered a bunch of series with some legendary coaches like Greg Popovich and Mike D'Antoni, and being at those series and asking them questions every day. And the few moments when Pop would give you a good answer and not tear the soul from your body. I picked up on some things, and one of the things that I really got to, and Billy Donovan was crucial in this too. You don't want to be the first one to adjust. Like, you want to wait. People are really like, they tend to think like, why doesn't this coach like, what's he doing? And a lot of it is like, you do not want to be the first one, because the minute that you start that chain, now you're out of what you want to do, and they're adapting to what you're trying to adapt to, and now you're in this, and like, you lose when you're the first one to make the adjustment, unless you have like the X at the end. And that's why Kerr, with having Draymond at 5, is always like, that was always the end game, is like, okay, enough, we're putting in the death lineup, right? Unless you have that in your back pocket, which the Suns do not. They do not have that. You don't want to be the first to adjust. This is why, honestly, like, starting Torrey Craig worked out brilliantly in the Clipper series, because in that Clipper series, Torrey Craig shot 56% from 3. Now, Torrey shot 40% from 3 this season. Torrey's a good shooter now. And I covered Torrey's, like, when he was in the G League and had to come, like, he took a flight that day and played that night. I have all the respect in the world for Torrey Craig. Torrey's not a 56% shooter, because nobody's a 56% 3-point shooter. Steph's not a 56 3-point shooter, right? So, like, this is part of the key here, are these types of dynamics. But Monty also, like, broke first, and like, he switched his starting lineup before game 1 of the playoffs. You don't do that unless you're like, we have to change things because of the way our group is structured. And when he did that, one of the reasons they lost game 1 is when you put a Kogi with the second unit, now they got no one on that second unit that can shoot. And he solved it by, I'm just going to play Devin Booker and Chris Paul and
all
Kevin
the minutes.
Like, I'm Nick Nurse on steroids. And he'll probably do that in this series. Like, that's their whole thing, is like, they gotta win 16 games, right? That's it. They gotta win 12 now. They gotta win 12 games. That's it. Yeah. But I do think that there's a little bit of a long-term edge. I think the longer the series goes, the more it benefits Denver. If the Suns win game 1, right, they could go up 3-1, break the Nuggets' confidence, and then close it out. But it's hard for me to envision those situations. Anything else that you kind of want to get to in this series?
Let me respond just a couple of those things. So when I was watching Kings Warriors fourth quarter, I went back and rewatched it, because it was part of that wild Wednesday night that, like, in hindsight, felt like we were watching March Madness, right? Like, we're just getting these wild finishes and comebacks. And I mean, Milwaukee played like a college team. The thing I saw in the fourth quarter Warriors team, and no, we see what we want to see, and I'm the Warriors guy, but I saw Andrew Wiggins hitting a big bucket, getting a rebound. I saw Gary Payton huge in that fourth quarter, getting the rebound, switching on defense, getting the loose ball, the hustle play. We've seen Looney make tons of plays in the series. You got to have those dudes to win tough series like the Warriors are ahead right now. You got to have those dudes to win a championship. The Suns don't have those dudes. They don't. And Torrey Craig and Josh Okogie and Shamet, Payne is back now. Look, Gary Payton wasn't that dude either. Andrew Wiggins wasn't that dude until he was. So maybe they are those dudes. But I think that there's a clear drop off. And look, you just had the last series, Cavs Knicks. We've had plenty of thoughts about, who's the 5th starter? I don't know if Phoenix is so far from that. If you're making the switch coming into game 1 of the playoffs and you don't know who your 5th guy is, I think you could have a similar problem. One more thing related to this, and let me just say up front, I want to see healthy guys play basketball and have a great series. But if you are playing 40 and 45 minutes for Kevin Durant and Chris Paul and Devin Booker, and we are betting on games, and I have to consider the edges we have, I have to consider the fact that playing this level of minutes in what will be a day after day after day series as we get to game 3 forward is an extreme red flag workload for Durant and for Chris Paul. Let me give you a couple numbers. Kevin Durant played 41 minutes all 5 games in the first round. Presumably, he'll continue to do that. The last time he played 5 straight games at 41 minutes or more was ending last season in Brooklyn, just the last 7 games, then into the offseason. Last time before that was for the Warriors in 2019. He had 6 games like that. He got hurt the 7th game. He missed a month, came back, played 1 game in the finals. You know what happened after that. Last time before that was 2014, 9 years ago. Kevin Durant does not play this load for this long. It doesn't work. Chris Paul played 37 minutes all 5 games. The last time he did that was 8 games in a row last February. He immediately missed a month as soon as he did that. Last time before that was 2015 with the Clippers. These dudes can't play this minute load. They can't. They can't have this wear and tear on their body. It's not even a criticism. Bodies aren't made to play this way. And I have to account in my cap as a bettor for the very real chance that you can't play these dudes 45 minutes every night and they may not make it whole through to the end of the series.
Yeah, there's been some interesting data on it. It's been more common lately for guys to play these kind of heavy minutes, but I still think it's like, especially with Durant at his age, coming off the Achilles and everything else, CP's in the same boat. Like 37 is a lot for CP at this point in his career, right? Like Durant's playing like 45 or whatever, but CP's playing at 38. He's playing 37 minutes. Like there is a lot on this. One thing I will say is that I'll say 2 things. While there is a higher injury concern, I think with Phoenix because of their specific personnel, one, I don't know how else to put this. Like guys get hurt versus Phoenix. Like that's voodoo-ish, and I understand it. I'm just telling you, like 2021 Lakers, Anthony Davis gets hurt in the first round, Suns advance. They face Jamal Murray, less Nuggets in round 2. They sweep. They face the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard. They face a fully healthy Bucks team. They lose to Mike Budenholzer, which suddenly looks like a much worse loss. Following year, they face the Pelicans without Zion Williamson, right? They face the Mavs fully healthy. They lose. Now they may / probably had COVID, but still. Following year.
By the way, the fully healthy Bucks that you mentioned nearly lost Giannis for the season like 3 days before and had him on like half of a knee for that series.
Yeah. And then this year they faced the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. So like, I knock on wood. Like I keep telling Denver fans, like you can put Jokic and Jamal in bubble wrap. On top of it, I will say the Nuggets do get worn down fatigue wise. They should be the best conditioned team in the league because they play at altitude. They are not. They're just not. Jamal Murray is not in great conditioning. Flat out, he gets tired. He got really tired in game 4 of the Wolves series. That's why they lost that game. Was like they were not pushing pace. Now wasn't just Jamal. Like the whole team was sluggish. But my point here is like this is Jokic's Jokicness aside, this is not a finely tuned group of like absolute lethal high condition guys. Aaron Gordon's in great shape. Bruce Brown's in great shape. KCP's in great shape. MPJ's actually in great shape. But yeah, let's do series pick, game 1 pick. So this is 2.5, which is saying like this is Suns minus 1.5 to 2.5 on a neutral court, and that to me is just wrong. These two teams should be closer. And also, to be perfectly honest with you, even if we just like did the standard adjustment, that feels light for Denver. Then we have to factor in how good Denver is at home, which they are absolutely dominant at home this season. So give me your cap for game 1 and why you're taking Denver minus 2.5.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't feel like I have a lot to add. My cap is I like Denver better in the series. I like Denver at home. I think they're the better team. It's under a bucket. It's just a very straightforward pick to me. You play the team that you like, play them at home. I know Phoenix's guys who are going to, they're high minute guys are rested. So you do get that possible advantage for Phoenix, but Denver's guys are rested too. So I'm not sure that that's necessarily a huge advantage here. I'm just going to take the better team in the series. When the line is basically negligible, well, knock on wood. Well, let's not have a Denver win by 1 or 2 here. But when it's this low, I think you just keep it straightforward. The only real consideration I have is, how I love to do the game 1 winner, series winner combo. So I like Denver to win the series. I like Denver to win game 1. I can play the combo at plus 190. I don't really have a reason not to play that other than if I shouldn't do everything, right? Like either play game 1 and the series separately or play the combo together. I feel like I feel better about playing them separately just because Phoenix is really good. We're both being Denver, but Phoenix is really good and could win the series, definitely.
Yep.
And Phoenix is really good and could win game 1, definitely. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Won't necessarily shake me to my inner core. So I think I'd rather not go all in on the exact outcome, even though that's my thing, and give myself a little bit of a little buffer in case Durant and Booker play like Durant and Booker and do crazy things. So I'll just take the Nuggets, cover, keep it straightforward.
I like the over in this one too. At 225, I just think this is light. I think both these teams, the Nuggets don't have elite wing defenders. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's a really good defender. He'll give Devin Booker problems. Bruce Brown, I actually think, is going to be pesky. But like booking KD or booking KD, and with the level the Book's at right now, like there's just nothing that you can do. So I think they're going to put up points. I think the Nuggets are probably going to push pace to try and wear them out. They came out, that was their strategy in game 1 versus the Wolves, was they pushed pace and got into things really intensely. So I think that happens, and faster pace obviously helps us here. Free throws probably help Phoenix. They'll probably draw some free throws, even though Denver, like you mentioned, Denver's a low free throw allowing team. Just think KD's probably going to get to the line because that's what KD does. So all in all, I like the over here at 225. I just think it's a little low. I understand any sort of argument for the pace or anything else, but I don't believe that these two defenses are well designed to stop one another. And I think they both know that. I think that both teams are like, if we're going to win the series, we're going to have to score points. I think the Suns have to be like, we're not shutting down Jokic. We're going to have to score. And the Nuggets have to be like, we're definitely not shutting down KD. We're going to have to score. And Booker, quite honestly, again, 19-1, Devin Booker Finals MVP when we gave it out on the podcast weeks ago. Just want to reiterate, if you're looking at Suns futures, Devin Booker Finals MVP to me is the way to go. All right, let's go to the other series. The New York Knicks, for some reason. No, the Knicks are a good team. Here's the thing. I'm annoyed, and I got to like not let this affect my cap because like it's annoying to me that I was so wrong about the Knicks and the Cavs. And I was more wrong about the Cavs than I was about the Knicks because like I haven't given the Knicks enough credit. This is a really good team. This team was the second best offense in the league. They had a 50-win pace over the last back half of the season since All-Star, which their fans have reminded me about 800 times. They're deep, which I'd never thought mattered, but it does here. They are awesome on the offensive glass. I didn't do some numbers on that, which we'll get into. It's very interesting because when the series came out and the Heat were dogs, I was like, ooh, I'm going to bet the Heat, but I didn't. And then I waited and I looked at the matchups. And when I looked at the matchups, I came out on Knicks. You, on the other hand, are taking the Heat here. Give me the cap on why you like Miami in this series.
Well, I'm going to start with the most important thing. Should I go there first?
Hit me with it.
Here's my most important thing. And I'm going to whittle it down to literally 2 words. Jimmy Spo. At the end of the day, if I pick the Heat, I have the best player in the court by a wide margin, and I have Spo and you have Tibbs. That's it. That's the most important thing.
You got me. I'm on Heat. That's it. That's doable. How am I taking Tom Thibodeau versus Eric Spoelstra? How am I going to do that? How am I going to do? How am I possibly going to bet Tom Thibodeau versus Eric Spoelstra? How? God, I hate this series. I hate it. I hate it so much, Brandon. I hate it because it should be Bucks Cavs, which would honestly be a pretty quick series, but still, if not, it should be like Heat Cavs, which would be interesting and weird. I'd be down with Knicks Bucks. That would be interesting. Like, this is just like, it's not that they're like, it's these two teams. It's like, oh God, you're right. How am I going to bet? How am I going to bet?
To be clear, I think this, to me, we previewed 8 series in the first round. This is now our 10th series. I guess we didn't technically preview the 1-8 series. but we did on our own. This easily is the toughest call for me of the series. When you say I hate the series, to me, that's how I'm interpreting it, as like, I just don't know. I'm a shrug emoji. If you follow my writing at Action Network, you know my NFL column, I do the bet lean pass when I pick all the games each week. If this was an NFL slate on just another Sunday with a whole bunch of other games, this is just a pass. I don't know. I don't know who wins in the series. I feel like these teams are very close, very even. It's honestly is a lot how I felt about New York and Cleveland last round. The difference is that Cleveland was the favorite and was getting a little too much too much juice on that side. So I did not love New York. I did not pick New York to win last round. I cannot victory lap it. I picked New York to keep it close enough and cover the 1+ or the 1.5. I just feel like I have similar thoughts here, but New York is suddenly the favorite. Now I think New York is probably slightly better. The numbers from the season say New York is clearly better. New York is a lot better. And my intuition says that maybe Miami won't keep making 78% of their 3-pointers every time they breathe. And maybe Jimmy Butler won't keep scoring 50 points every single night. And maybe all those things. But, and we'll get to the game picks. I expect a lot of unders in this series. I expect a lot of 90s looking games, much like we just saw with the Knicks last series, 5-0 to the under. I expect a lot of close games. Miami is very good late in the game. And if it's a close game at the end and a low scoring game, and we're going to get a bunch of those because Miami does not blow teams out and New York does not get blown out. If I got close games at the end, do I want Jimmy and Spo, or do I want Julius and Jalen Brunson and then Tibbs? And I can't get away from that. I just can't. It's the thing that I do in the NFL when I can't figure out what I'm doing. It's look at the quarterback and look at the coach. And Jimmy's the quarterback, and I know who I want at coach.
All right, so I'm gonna grill you. I'm gonna ask you questions on these things. Okay.
Okay.
Miami has 2 centers. They have Bam Adebayo and Cody Zeller. By the way, I'm like the only member of the I am the only non-member of the Cody Zeller Zeller family to be a fan of Cody Zeller. I think he's good. I thought he was good. There's a lot of numbers that have led me to that. Why will offensive rebounds, which murdered the Cavs, not kill Miami here?
Yeah, so I had to consider that. And I think that looking at, I'm big on the 4 factors. Looking at the 4 factors here is a much different story than the Cleveland series.
Yeah.
Here's the difference. New York, I believe, had the number 2 offense by offensive rating in the regular season. And boy, was my mind like the cloud emoji thing. That was me when I checked into basketball in March and I was like, I'm sorry, what? Yeah. Tibbs and the Knicks are the number 2 offense? And you look at the numbers and you're like, oh, okay. No, not okay. What? Why are the number 2 offense? What's happening here? Well, what's happening is they never turn the ball over. They mash the offensive glass. They get a ton of free throws. Those are 3 of the 4 factors. That's literally 3 of the 4 things. They're not good at shooting. That's the 4th one. We saw that last series. They were not good at shooting. They literally have the worst true shooting percentage of all 16 playoff teams. They won a series 4-1 with the worst shooting in the playoffs because they dominated turnover, free throw, rebounding margin. Miami Heat defensively ranked top 7 in all 3 of those things. They're 5th in defensive rebounding percentage. So that's my answer, is the numbers tell me Miami is a good defensive rebounding team and is not going to let the offensive rebounds happen. I also weirdly find a player. I'm sorry if this is stealing a guy. You said you had a guy for this series. I kind of think Kevin Love is a really good player for Miami in this series. Kevin Love is an awesome rebounder. Yeah. Kevin Love is really good on the glass. And I think having him out there by default, because they have to, they got nobody else, I think he'll be good. And stretching the defense out, I don't know if I feel great about Mitchell Robinson in this series and where he's going to go or what he's really going to do in this series. I don't know where he ends up. We saw him getting a little bit of trouble. It's a different offense than what Cleveland runs, but I have some concerns there. I think Love is going to get his threes up. And I think he can be a rebounder and actually make an impact. Not a huge thing. He's not going to start playing like 35 minutes or something. But to me, that's the answer, rebounding. when I look at like the four factors and the big picture team matchup thing, here's my takeaway. And this is where I come back to the shrug emoji. The Heat want to take a ton of threes. The Knicks defense allows the 5th most 3-pointers attempts. They allow a good percentage, but they allow a lot of them. The Knicks, top 10 in 3-point attempt rate. The Heat defense, they want to allow you lots of 3-pointers. So guess what's going to happen, Matt? We're going to have a 3-point shootout between the Heat and the Knicks, who can't make 3-pointers. That's it. That's the game. If you look at the 4 games they played in the regular season, I know we both said unders already. I know you looked at the 4 games. 2 of the games, 210 points and 193. The other 2 games, 242 and 247, because in those 2 games, they combined to shoot like 43% 3 in both of them. I think that's what's going to happen in the series. Just like we're going to take an under and they're going to go over it by 45 some game because they all decide to make threes that game. Then we're going to pivot and be like, oh, okay, they're making shots. They're going to put up like a 180 the next game. So that's my shrug confusion emoji is. Other than the Spo Butler thing, I just have to figure out who's going to shoot better. I don't know who's going to shoot better in this series.
I'm looking up rebound props. We don't have them yet. They haven't.
I do. Josh Hart rebound is one I've got my eye on, especially early in the series. Josh Hart played 43 and a half minutes the last 2 games as a starter while Quentin Grimes was out. We don't know if Grimes will be out or Randall, but if one or both are out, Hart averages 8.4 rebounds per 36. That is always since his Villanova days been a huge strength of his. So Hart rebounds and then Hart double if he's going to get the rebounds. That's one I would have my eye on. It's really the only prop that I have for early in the series, but we don't have lines. You can bet Jimmy and Bam lines right now. That's it.
Yeah, because Randall's availability.
Right.
Here's the thing: we haven't talked about Julius Randle because I don't think either one of us think he matters. Like, I just at this point, Julius is going to have to win a playoff series. He's going to have to look good in the playoff series for me to believe he's a positive player. Like, Julius and Domantas Sabonis can start a club. Okay. One of the counters that I had, the guy I was going to talk about actually is Josh Hart.
Okay.
Because I feel like the Bucks, if you look at what Jimmy did, the only guy that had success against them and he held him to only 50% shooting, I'm serious, that was good in that series because of how ridiculous Jimmy was Wes Matthews, which is why it was ridiculous. Apparently Drew Holiday was the one that was like, no, I got Jimmy. And like, that's a mistake by Drew. Like, not to go back, rehash the Bucks thing, but like Drew Holiday should have been like, yeah, no, you take Wes and I'm going to help off and create turnovers. But you need size on Jimmy, and Hart has the wingspan. I think that's a decent matchup for the Knicks. My other question for you is this. No Tyler Hero, at least for the, like, I can't see him being back at any point in the series, quite honestly. No Victor Oladipo. The bench is down to nothing. It's down to nothing. Why is the Knicks bench, which was such an advantage versus the Cavs, not a huge advantage here?
I think it is. I think it is less early in the series until we know that Randall and Quentin Grimes are back. That evens things out until we get them at more regular minutes. I'm not a big Tyler Hero fan, but Tyler Hero in the 4 games they played this season head-to-head was really good and really important in those games. He was awesome in three of the 4. He hit 16 threes in the 4 games that they played, and they're all in the back half of the season. So I was surprised looking at the game-to-game. I was like, uh-oh, no Hero. It could be a problem. I think in a weird way, it worked against Milwaukee that they had to be like, all right, Kevin Love, why don't you go see if you can do some stuff? Hey, Duncan, $18 million a year. Could you go out and just run out for a while and maybe shoot if you're open? And it turns out that among things that Duncan Robinson and Kevin Love can do is shoot threes still. Again, the Knicks want you to shoot threes. So I think accidentally having to play those guys, even if that's how they got there, can maybe work. And I realize those are not good defenders, but I don't really care a lot against the Knicks. Like, I'm not really worried about Brunson hunting, and I don't know. I mean, sure, but Duncan and Love can make some threes. So I think the depth thing is real. I think the home court matters here. I'm going to play devil's advocate to myself a little bit here. Some of the points I had for the Knicks. So the depth, I think, is a big important part. New York has to win that. I will be looking at New York's second quarters. That's one quarter that New York's been really good at. and that Miami is not. So I don't play that right away. I want to see the bench thing, but that's one spot. Home road split. Where are my numbers here? The Heat were 27-14 at home, but the Knicks were 24-17 on the road, so about even. The Knicks are 23-18 at home. The Heat were 17-24, negative 2.1 net, and New York is the home team. So I think that certainly is an advantage that New York gets the home crowds and the home advantage there. What other point did I have for the Knicks? Well, okay, let me go back to the other side. And let me ask you this question because I don't have an answer for it. The Knicks offense isn't great. We know this. We've watched it. It's not built to be great. I know they're number 2, but we watch it in action in these slower games and they're struggling to score. The one guy who can really get going for them and get cooking is Jalen Brunson. When Jalen Brunson starts to cook, why wouldn't they just put Jimmy Butler on him? Game over. Brunson is literally eliminated by Butler's size and defensive prowess. How does New York score after that? What's their answer?
I think it depends on the coverage, right? If they play drop with Bam, then Jimmy coming over the top probably is able to get clearance. But this actually was where Mitch matters. Jimmy trying to run over Mitch is actually like he'll get clearance, right? And if Bam's playing drop, which he does a little bit more, okay, then Butler has or Brunson has the floater, and that'll work. Like you can do that. Like part of the secret here is like the Heat defense hasn't been great. It was amazing in the fourth quarters of the last series. Amazing. Even on top of all the Bucks bedwetting that went on. Like, even if you factor for all that, the rotations, how tight they were, how physical, all of that. But like Miami's defense was really bad over the back half of the season. And honestly, when the Bucks got going, the Bucks looked awesome, right? Like the Bucks looked like had these big, like they had big leads. In part because of all this. If they switch it, right? One, Jimmy's no longer on him and Mitch is on him, and that's fine because Jimmy will battle him. And you're not going to like post up Mitch Robinson, but also that's probably better for the Heat. Like switch it and then be like, yeah, Mitch Robinson's going to the post now or the dunker spot. Jimmy will scram it, but I think it's like worth at least exploring. The problem there is that like if you switch that, the bigger question here is going to be if they run Mitch and they run Randall. And Randall's going to be a pressure point here because if they run Randall in this pick and roll, right? And you're able to get Randall in space versus the drop, like that's where he can do damage. Get Randall on the move, you can hit some of this. The Heat defense, I do think is vulnerable. Like I think it's more vulnerable than you do. I think that they had a spectacular fourth quarter performance versus a team that every single year we have talked about how the Bucks do not perform in these situations. And I can't believe I'm saying this. I actually think the Knicks might be more poised offensively. Right? Oof. Yeah. This is
check my phone again. Check my phone and see if Bud still has that job. Yeah, he's still all right for now.
This is gonna be an Emmanuel Quickly series. He should be good here. Yeah. Like he should be much better this series than he was last series. This should be an Obi Toppin series. I don't know if Tibbs is gonna do this, but he should absolutely give Toppin the Butler assignment for stretches. Like Knicks fans are like, he's terrible defensively. It's just about an athletic body, man. Just put Obi on him and do it that way. But Hartenstein versus Bam is actually a really compelling matchup. Like that's really interesting there, and like that's where you can honestly create a lot is like you can kill them with offensive rebounds. If it's Jimmy and Bam, if it's 2-on-1, just get that shot up and crash the offensive glass. Like that's the Knicks formula in large part, right? Is like second chance points. So that's part of the equation here. Yeah. I will say that like my best bet is now gone. You're right. Like we just did all this analysis, all this deep dive stuff. And I'm with you. Like I'm going to be looking for Kevin Love rebounds. It's probably going to be a prop that I want.
Yeah.
I can't bet on Tom Thibodeau versus Eric Spoelstra. Forget the Jimmy side of it. Because I think Jalen's proven to be a really great playoff performer. One thing I think that's interesting, and I don't have the numbers on this, the Knicks actually play the same scheme as the Cavs, which is they actually play aggressive at the level of the screen. So they'll blitz Jimmy. Jimmy's not a great passer. He's good. He's not a great passer. And if it's like if it's 4-on-3 with Gabe Vincent and Bam, don't you take that if you're the Knicks? Like, isn't really the formula just like anybody but Butler? Which is not what the Bucks did. The Bucks were like, we're going to guard him straight up. At some point, you should probably, like Giannis said it, like they should have doubled. I think the Knicks will play more aggressive on him. I wish that this was Heat favored and I could take Knicks plus 1.5. Like that's the number I want. But because Knicks are favored here, I can't get there. This is
that's the problem that I have. And like I said, even though I'm coming off between the two of us as the more confident side on Miami, I'm not confident in this pick. I think this is a very even series. What I wanted, same as last series, which it didn't hit as it turns out, but I wanted the Knicks series to go over 5.5. That was the bet I wanted. Over 5.5 games, long series. Seems easy, right? Long, grinded out, 90 series, over 5.5, minus 180. No, thank you. And by the way, that's what I wanted. It was the exact same price for the New York series last round, and it did not hit. So it didn't go well for that way. So then I was like, all right, well, how about a Heat plus 1.5 in the series? They're the underdog. What if I just get the Heat to make it a longer series? Nope, minus 176. So the two things that to me seem like the obvious bets here, the straightforward angles, the books were like, yeah, we know. So we go ahead and pay for them if that's what you want. So here's where I got to. Heat plus 134 is 43%. I mean, I think the Heat are the team that's going to win the series. So maybe it's just keep it simple and do that. Heat in 6 or 7 is the best bet that I gave out. Heat in 6 is plus 450. In 7 is plus 600. So if you split your bet evenly, you're basically getting a plus 208 there. Here's the problem. Am I positive that the Heat wouldn't just win in 5? I'm not saying they're going to, but let me refresh you a few things that I know you know about our man, Tom Thibodeau. He has previously lost as a 4 seed to a 5 in 5 games. He's lost as a 3 seed to a 6 in 5 games. He's also lost as a 1 seed to an 8 in 6 games. And by the way, doesn't it just feel like Tom Thibodeau should be the first coach ever to lose to 2 8 seeds? Feels right, doesn't it? It feels right. Yeah, you're definitely not picking the Knicks after that.
I hate this series so much. I hate it. I hate it.
I will say too about the players. Last round, you pushed to me that RJ Barrett was going to have to be a thing, and I was going to have to rely on RJ Barrett to win the series. And I did not like it. Oh, no, sir, I did not.
Yet.
RJ Barrett was real good in that series. Yeah. I think that this round, I think Julius Randle is the version of that. Julius Randle, I think, actually can give some matchup problems. And he had a couple huge games against Miami in the regular season. One of those, he hit like 7 or 8 threes, and Randle's going to do that every now and then. But I think, like you said, the matchup thing and with the Knicks' smaller guards and Miami's point of attack defense, I don't know that I'm confident in their defense as much as just the 4 factors version of it and the things that they do the best. They're going to push New York to shoot threes, and I feel good about that. That's all. But I think Julius Randle is the guy. He has to be the Jalen Brunson this series for them to. If you want to believe in the Knicks, I think it has to be because Randle is going to be healthy enough to go put up some big games and be the best player on the court in a game, better than Jimmy Butler, and be the reason the Knicks won a couple games. I think that's possible. Julius Randle is good. Butler is not always playoff god Jimmy Butler. But again, that's not the side that I want to be on. But I think it's a possible outcome.
We're long on this, despite us not feeling great about this, which is never content that our producer wants. Let's get to best bets for the game. We love the under. We talked about that, about it's a 3-point shooting contest with the Knicks and the Heat. You asked me this question, and it was a really good call about an early start time. So I looked up playoff teams at home with a start time before 3:30 Eastern. Okay. So start time before 3:30 Eastern. Home teams are 12-18 straight up in the playoffs since 2003. The start time of that, it's 40%, 10-20 at 33% against the spread in those games. The under is 18-10-2 for 64.3% of the time those games go under on an early start. Why are you, who very rarely plays totals, liking an under here?
Again, partly because I needed a game one pick, and similarly to the series, I'm like, well, this is the best thing that I can see for now. So I'm going to go light on this. I wanted the under to be like a 219 or something. I honestly thought it might be higher, but no, not going to happen. Bottom 5 pace, both of these teams. We're going to see the slow, grinded out games. We know we're seeing that. We've seen it from both of them. We know what these teams are. And it's going to come down to whether the threes fall. And I have to just bank on not threes falling and hope for the best that way, and hope at the slow pace and the shots missing. The 4 games they played during the regular season, their pace was about a 93, which is a real slow pace. 2 of those went way over because they hit pretty much all their shots. But I like the under here. I will say this, though I'm literally playing the under, I looked at it at FanDuel, our sponsor, the highest alternate over that you can play is a 230.5 at 11-1. 231 is not a lot of points. Miami went well past that in most of their Milwaukee games. 231 is, I guess you guys made some shots tonight. Like 118, 116, we're clear. 11-1. I'm just saying, with the variance and the shots that are going to happen in the series, like I might look at totals and be like I looked at the other side. The lowest under you can play is under 180.5 at 15-1. I think it might be playable to just take the far tail ends of the over-unders and just be like, I don't know. Let's see if they hit shots. And some days they will and some days they won't. I don't know if it's going to happen in the middle that much. So I'm going to start with the under, but that's my fun, creative total play that I'm eyeing depending on how the shooting goes here.
I like the Heat +4 here. Is at this point that I am obligated contractually to mention that in the NBA playoffs this season, when a team has won, they are 46-0, obviously straight up, but they are 45-1, 89% against the spread when they do win the game outright. When they cover, so on the other side of this, when they cover, this season, when they just cover the game, they have won outright 89% of the time. They are 40-5 when a team covers. Those trends go back 3 seasons. It's about 90%. We have seen a number of those tick up recently. It looks like those are starting to tail off a little bit, just a touch, but the overall trend is still extremely strong. So when I tell you that, like, I like Miami here, bear in mind that I should just be playing, and like I probably will. I'll just take the Miami game 1's line because, as I mentioned, teams in that start time. I also looked at this Eastern Conference playoff teams with a start time before 3:30, 8-18 against the spread, 31%. Oof. Like home teams.
Can I ask a mean question?
Yeah.
How much of that is just New York? I mean, it's very mean, but I feel like we love to put New York as this like early lunchtime game, and I don't feel like New York has been great in the playoffs, so that might just be a bunch of them, but it's them again. So,
well, I'll tell you this: actually, they are not bad. They are not as bad as some other teams.
Okay.
With a start time, and I actually haven't done it a whole lot. Playoff teams at home start time less than 3:30. The Knicks have only had 1 game.
Well, yeah, that's fair. That checks out as well for other reasons.
For
the Knicks aren't in the playoffs a lot, it turns out.
By the way, this is my pettiness factor for you. I looked up in the playoffs when a team has 5 more offensive rebounds than their opponent or more. 48% straight up, 47% against the spread. Congratulations, JB Bickerstaff. You got played. All right, that's going to wrap it up for buckets. Wrapping up these series. Brandon and I both like Nuggets -1.5 on the series spread. Brandon likes the Heat in 6 or 7. Yes.
Correct.
We both like Nuggets -2.5 in game 1. I like the over 225. We both like the under in game 1, Knicks Heat at 206.5. And I'll grab the points with the Miami Heat +4, and I will play the money line as well based off of the trend. That's going to wrap it up for buckets for this week. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Hope you guys have yourselves a great weekend. Enjoy the hoops. Enjoy the start of the second round. We'll be back on Monday. We'll get you set for Sixers Celtics, as well as whatever the other series is going to be, because we're recording this on Thursday night. Don't know. Check out all Brandon's stuff on the NFL draft. He's got great content over there. Check out the Action Network app. You got Green Dot Daily. So much cool stuff. Check all that out. My thanks to David Payne, our producer, who's producing this late on a Thursday night before he's moving. So I appreciate him putting in that extra work. Thanks, David. We'll see you guys again on Monday. Till then, let's get buckets.